Today we're going to make a llama blanket weaving project. We're going to weave a little section on top of this llama to make it look like he has a blanket on top of his back. The supplies you're going to need today are one piece of paper, a piece of cardboard, a little bit of yarn, markers or crayons, scissors, and 2 small pieces of tape. The first step I want to do is create my llama. So I'm going to create a rectangle, but I'm not going to make the corners super pointed. Instead, I want to make them a little bit round to give it the shape of the body of the llama. Then I'm going to add a little tail. Don't make it too skinny or it'll be hard when you try to cut it out. And then for his legs, we're looking at the side of him, so it's like we're only seeing 2 legs. So here's one, and the second one, and it's like a triangle shape, but with a rounded point. Then for his head, I'm gonna come up, make it not perfectly straight, loop around for an ear, go across like in the shape of a almost rainbow for his top of his forehead, another ear, and come back down. So now you can see his head. So this gives me the general shape of my llama, and what I'm gonna do, I'll erase some of these lines so you can see him a little better. I drew him on paper first so that I have like a little template. What you're gonna need after your paper is a piece of cardboard. If you don't have cardboard from a box, a cereal box would also work well because it's a lot thicker than paper. So I have a piece of scrap cardboard that I got. This was actually from a box of Waters. And I'm going to cut out my llama, and then I'm gonna trace him onto here. You could just draw your llama straight onto here, but I wanted to do it on my paper first so that I have a good idea of what I am doing, and it'll be a little bit easier to erase without making a mess of my cardboard. So I'm gonna cut it out now. Now that I have my llama cut out, I'm gonna place it on top of my cardboard, and I'm going to carefully trace around my llama. That way I have the shape that I want onto the cardboard. And like I said, you could draw your llama straight onto the cardboard, but this keeps you from having to make a bunch of eraser marks on your cardboard, because later we're gonna decorate him and you don't wanna see a bunch of eraser marks on him. And now I'm ready to cut out my llama. Now that my cardboard llama is ready, I am going to start making my loom, which is the thing that holds your weaving together. Now our llama is going to be our loom to hold the weaving, because we want the loom or the weaving to be his blanket. So it's gonna look like he has a blanket draped over his back right here. So when you're making a loom, you need an odd number of strings going across so that your weaving will be able to go into an over-under pattern, which I'll show you more about in a little bit. So you need an odd number. So from right here to right here is where I want his blanket to be. So I'm gonna make me a little mark here and one over here showing that's where it's gonna end. And so I'm gonna do 5 slits so that my yarn can go over and under, and then it'll switch patterns when it goes back. So I have 1, 2, and I'm gonna do 1 in the middle, 3, and then 1 in between those 2. So that's number 4, and 1 in between these 2. I'm gonna do the same marks at the bottom. 1, 2, 1 in the middle, and then 1 between these first 2, and 1 between these last 2. So we have 5 on the top, 5 on the bottom. With your scissors, you're just gonna make a little cut following that line. Don't go past your line because you don't want to cut through your llama. You're just making these little slits for your yarn to be able to be held on through the cardboard. So now what you'll do is you can take a piece of yarn, any color, or it can be string as well, and a piece of tape. And when you have your tape, get a little piece, and this is going to go on the back of your cardboard just to hold your yarn. You could glue your yarn, but that'll take a while for it to dry, and gluing yarn is not as easy as you think it would be. So starting up here by his head is where my yarn is going to come through. So what I'm going to do is tape this on the back, press it down really well, and then I'm going to bring my yarn through and pull it tight onto this first slit that we made. Then I'm going to go down and into that next slit. Now I could wrap it around and keep going, but that's going to use a lot more yarn. So if you don't have enough yarn or you're worried about your amount, the easier way to save yarn is to go, now that we've gone down, then I'm going to go across and into the next slit. Then I'm going to go up and pull it down into that slit. Okay, so my pattern goes down, across, up. And you can have an adult help you with this if you are a little confused on getting the loom started. This is the hardest part. Well, as well as sometimes drawing the llama, because you don't want to draw them too small. Now I'm going to go across and pull my yarn tight into that little slit, and then go down, across, up, and then across. And one more time into my last slit. So I actually have a little bit extra yarn. What I'm going to do to make sure that I have plenty of yarn, I'm not going to cut this yet in case my loom ends up getting messed up. I can trim that at the end, but I'm going to put a piece of tape, press down that long piece of yarn. Now, if this is going to be in your way and confuse you, you might want to tape that all. Like I said, we can trim it later, but I don't want to get rid of it now in case I end up messing up. So now it looks nice and pretty in the front. It's pretty tight, but I can still lift my lift the yarn up with my finger because we're going to be pushing the yarn through there. So your loom is ready, and this is going to be his little blanket. I've gathered a few different colors of yarn, just a few short pieces. They don't have to be super long. You can use all one color, but I want it to look nice and pretty, and since I have this yarn at my house, I'm going to go ahead and use it. The first thing you want to do is tie your piece of yarn onto your loom. Remember, this is your loom now, which is what holds your weaving together, and it helps create the pattern for you to go over and under. So I'm going to tie a little knot onto this first string. Let's see. So just like when you're starting to tie your shoes, you cross it, and then you're going to take the short end and loop it through the hole, and then you're going to pull nice and tight. Notice I tied it up towards the top of my loom. A couple of terms that you don't necessarily have to know but are good to know for weaving is the strings that are going vertically down your loom. These are called the warp. The warp is what holds your weaving together, and it provides tension so that you can create your pattern on it. The string that we've tied onto the warp The warp is my purple string here. So this one, my pink one, is going to be my weft. And just like the word left, but with a W in front of it, your weft. And so what you're gonna do is, I'm kind of gonna roll this up. I don't want it to get tangled, but that way it's easier for me to work with. I'm going to take my weft and I'm going to start on my very next string by going under it. So I'm lifting it and pushing this string under. Oops, there we go. And then I'm gonna make sure I pull it all the way through. I don't wanna pull so tight to where it's pulling my warp. Do you see how that's pulling my warp right there? I just wanna give it enough tension so that it's not super loose like this. This would be loose, but I wanna pull it to where it's nice and straight. So I went under, you can see it's under that purple string. And my next one, I'm going to go over. So I'm gonna go across and over this purple string. And then the pattern is under. So I'm gonna push it under. And you can probably guess the next step is over. And then when I get to the end of the row, pull it a little bit snug and push it up. Now, we're over right now, and I want to go back this way so that I can keep going back and forth and fill in this space. So if I go over right here, before I can go back, because I can't just go back right here or it doesn't include this one, before I can go back, I have to now go under. Since it was over, now I go under and pull it through. Make sure you adjust, keep it towards the top. So I'm under. Now I'm going to go over this string, and that means I have to go under this middle one. So I'm going to pull my yarn through there. I'm under. Now I go over, and then once again under. I'm readjusting because I accidentally pulled it too tight. Now, we ended under this one. So in order to go back this way, I need to go over my first string, under my next one, then over, which means it goes under this one, and over my last one. Now, in case it's kind of hard for you to see what I'm doing with the yarn kind of balled up, I'm going to use just the end now. So same thing. I ended over here by going over this piece of yarn. So now I'm going to go back that way, but I have to go under now. Then over this one, under my next one, over and under. And then I'm going to pull all of the string through, and I want to push it up and make it just a little snug. So I'm under. Now to go back the other way, I need to go over this first yarn, then under, then over, then under, then over, and pull all that yarn through again. Push it up. Once I have a few rows of my first color, if you have another color that you are wanting to switch out, in my case I have two other colors that I still want to do, so I'm going to just leave a little bit of a tail on the string, make a cut, and then I'm going to tie these two pieces of string together. Okay, so just like when you're tying your shoes, I'm going to take the ends I'm going to cross them. I'm going to go around. And normally you pull a little bit when you're tying your shoes, but now we have to do it again to make that same motion. So I'm going to cross them. And this time you can see on mine, the orange is on top. So I'm going to wrap it around the pink and make it go through that circle right there. Pull tight, and you have a knot. Oops, I almost pulled it all the way through. And you can have an adult help you with this part. Knots are not the easiest thing. Okay, so now I have my new color ready to go. Now I ended going over this last piece of yarn. So now I'm going to take my yarn and go back that way by starting under, then over, then under. Pull that yarn through. I'm under, so now I'm going to go over, then under my last part of my warp. Pull it a little bit snug, and I've pushed it up. So now I'm ready to go back the other way. So you can see my new color is about to start. With the end of the pink, I went under this one. So now to go back the other way, I have to go over, then under the next one, over this one, under the next one, and over. And we'll hide these ends of the strings once I have more going. So I'm over, under. I hope you guys figured out this pattern pretty easy. Over, under, over, under. So I'm going to finish this up. I'm going to add finish this color, add my last color, and then we'll talk about how to leave it at the end. So what I've done now is I made a knot with my weft string, which is my purple string that was going across over and under, and I tied it onto my warp string, which is my vertical string that's going up and down. So I tied it, I did it twice, and now I've trimmed this little end more, and I'm going to tuck it behind to make sure it's hidden and looks nice. Same thing with this one up here. If you have any strings that are poking out and showing from where you tied your two colors together, you can hide those as well. Make sure everything looks really nice, and you can see I have my llama and his blanket that's on his back, and now I'm ready to decorate, showing the texture of his fur and putting some eyes, maybe even some garland on his neck. Feel free to decorate your llama however you want. I took a yellow marker right here and made a little bit of a shadow to show some contrast on his mouth and nose. I did a letter U shape and a curved line going to the left and one to the right to finish out the mouth. Of course, two eyes. Gave him some rosy cheeks. And then I took the black marker and made some garland. And then I decorated the garland in several different colors. Garland is often colorful. It has pom-poms hanging from it sometimes, or little streamers, just to add some more decoration to him and make him look a little bit festive. One thing I forgot to add in the video is I did use a little bit of the yellow in the middle of the ears to show some contrast up there as well. be creative as you want with him or her. It can be a girl. Something I wish I had at home was some little pom-pom balls, and if I would have had pom-pom balls, then I would have added some along the bottom of the blanket area, kind of going towards his belly. Now I'm taking the black marker and adding some lines to show the texture of his fur. I chose not to do it on his face. I didn't want his face to look cluttered. And then I outlined the edges so that you can see a sharp contrast of his edges on the cardboard. If you need to, throughout this video, or especially at the end right here while you're decorating, feel free to pause it. But remember, your llama doesn't need to look exactly like mine. You could even create a unicorn or a horse out of this and change the look of it. So get creative, and I hope to see your pictures of your llamas that you make.